I've been warned about the clicker. We'll see how this works here. Around when the Powerball got up to just absolutely enormous, astronomical numbers earlier this year, or was it last year, whenever it was, it didn't really matter, this came out. The idea that someone would share their winnings, if they won, by just the simple act of a Facebook post. And you know, if you like this and share this, it'll be an amazing thing. This tactic got just absolutely massively viral. Thousands, if not millions of posts. This thing got, in 18 hours, 36,000 likes of people that were gonna share the possible bazillion-dollar Powerball winnings. Amazing. 96,000 comments. It's just one of those things that was incredibly viral. There's only one real problem with that. You see the business up there? It was Guru Tattoo Studios. So of those 96,000 people, how many people lived in West Palm Beach, Florida, and were going to get a tattoo? I'm gonna go with a pretty low number off of that. Because at the core of it, there was no correlation between what they did and everything else. I'm betting this is the only tattoo they sold. They didn't plan ahead. They didn't think about what this meant for them. And I saw this based upon the idea of how much ROI can I push out of this. This is ROI. Look at all these free likes we got. It doesn't really work out that way. No one is flying into West Palm Beach that liked your stuff in California. You're a local business. And even if that only cost you $20 and you didn't get any tattoos, doesn't matter. This is sensitive. So let me really quickly talk about myself. As mentioned, our company was the US Search Awards Small Agency of the Year, something I'm remarkably proud about for obvious reasons. We run an internet marketing firm in Dallas. Particularly, we focus on analytics and the technical parts of both SEO and PPC. I'm a huge hockey fan, and you will quickly get that if you watch this. The Stars are going to get the cup this year. Very excited about that. And love food and wine. It's a big thing for me. I eat as well as anyone on the planet, and it shows. And my family, I always put them in my presentations because I miss them dearly when I'm gone, and it's a little reminder of who they are. So we're going to go over 4 tips for ROI survival and measuring what your effect is on social. First and most important thing is to start with a goal. Anyone a Buffalo fan in here for hockey? Good. Go Stars. In case you didn't know, that is the winning moment of the Stanley Cup in 1999. Brett Hull's skate not in the crease. I don't care what anyone says. This is not a great goal, it turns out. Likes, as we started out this conversation with, don't really matter. This is the basic equivalent of a like. And moving on. That's all people see. It's somebody walking by your window in a real business sense and smiling. That's great. You know, we've seen like those church posts that have like the really cool, oh, that's pithy and that's funny and I'll take a picture of that. Didn't get somebody in a church. Or one of my favorite things, today's special, a bowl of whiskey. That's fantastic, but did it bring somebody into the store? Probably not. Might have gotten shared, but doesn't really mean anything. This is not a great goal. Here's one of the main reasons why. You guys may have heard of Lamborghini, kind of a big deal. Their Facebook page has 10 million fans. 10 million. That's an amazing number. They sell 2,500 cars a year, worldwide. That's a lot of fans per like. So let's look at that math and figure that out. Then there's this other car company you guys may have heard of. It's kind of a small one. It's called Ford. And they make some fantastic cars. They're not nearly as sexy as Lamborghini, so they only have a mere 2 million fans. However, they sell 6 million cars a year. So you can't just take the logic of how much is a fan worth and apply it to a situation like this. It just doesn't make any sense. Because you'd say, well, we sell 6 million cars, we have 2 million likes. Every like we get, that's 3 cars out the door. Social media ROI. Nope, doesn't work that way. The same's true on Twitter. We get obsessed about follower counts, right? Anybody know who this guy is? He only had 12 followers and one of them was a hater, right? Your number of followers doesn't matter. You can do a lot of things without needing a huge follower count. It's not the right metric. You have to relate it back to your core business. What is it that you do? And e-commerce is the classic. How many products did we sell? But that's not the only metric that matters. If you're a luxury brand, your desire, the fact that people can't buy your stuff, but a lot of people want it, makes your brand more compelling. So if you look back at Lamborghini, their goal might actually be to get even more followers because, well, the fact that 10 million people like it and only 2,500 people can have it actually sells more of them at a higher price. If you're doing content, how deep did people get into content? Did they go and read additional things? Did they subscribe? Do they take action based upon it? Or if you're a community, do people come back? Are they posting? Are they doing more things? These are the metrics that matter, and these are the ones that drive your real business. If you lose sight of that and just take an easy metric, you are missing the point. Unfortunately, the conversion path for us is nonlinear. So it takes a lot of tagging and a lot of effort to make sure that you're measuring it. So don't expect that a link that you posted on Twitter is going to result in a sale. That is not the way to view this goal at all. It's a long path. Immediacy is not the goal here. The long-term value is. So you have to take that into account. I mean, it's certainly, oh, I read this post, I bought a car. It doesn't really work that way. Wish it did. My life would be a lot easier. To do that, it takes a central data source. This is Toronto's mission headquarters where they review every goal that happens in the NHL. They have a central data source. They win if, in terms of what the call on the ice is and all that kind of good stuff. They understand this. When you look at things like Facebook and Twitter, they give you what are very, very isolated metrics. So one of my favorite posts, updating a joke into schema form, which I actually need to update again into JSON LD. But you know, I've gotten thousands of impressions on this, and this many likes, and this many engagements, and all that kind of good stuff. That's great, but what did it drive for my business? It only tells me what happened on Twitter. Twitter metrics help you get better at Twitter. Facebook metrics help you get better at Facebook. They're very, very different than understanding what actually happens to your business. Anyone know this, this phrase? Well, this is the #1 mistake that most people make. This is not a measurement model. What happens on Facebook shouldn't stay on Facebook. What happens on Twitter shouldn't stay on Twitter. What happens on Instagram, pick it. Get people to your site. The moment you get them to the site, that's where your magic happens. Now I know what they've done, I know what their original source was, and I have something special. It's really the key to all measurement. That's what you want them to do anyway, right? Put links in everything you do back to your site. I think Greg mentioned it just a few minutes ago. If you're boosting a post, you're keeping people on Facebook. Fantastic. Facebook loves that. You may not. These guys will always put a link in their site. And a lot of people will use link shorteners because they provide additional tracking options in that, which we'll hit in just a second. You have to tag the items you control, and that's where the URL shortener or other things like that. If you don't know it, this is for Google Analytics. The new campaign URL builder, it just moved to a new location, it has a new user interface, and only requires one thing, or two things really. The URL that you want somebody to go to, and the campaign source, social, Google, whatever, that's it. It used to require 3 things. So it's even gotten easier to use. No excuse not to use this. It'll build it up for you and make a really long URL that says UTM this and Facebook that and whatever else. But you don't even have to think about it. It'll do it for you. Just put all your stuff in and get it going. And once you get the rhythm and the hang of it, it keeps working from there. You can even do more sophisticated things for off-site tracking links if you have somebody set up an advanced analytics platform. You can push data server-side with what's known as measurement protocol. And you can actually say, well, I don't know who this person was, I don't necessarily have a cookie on them, but I know something happened. I know somebody clicked on our link to look at our post because I sent them through that URL tracker, it hit my server, and then they went to where they were going. This is good for understanding the user behavior across, even if they don't hit your site. In-page actions can be tracked. There's some code right up here for tracking whether someone liked your page or not. You can mark that link and look for actions that occur. It's very, very powerful. Try and get all the data you can when people hit your site for everything that you're doing, because if you're not being a junkie and pushing everything to that central data source, you're going to miss out. One of my favorite tricks is this content consumption. It's long to explain, but basically it's a JavaScript that runs on the page and sees how far somebody scrolled down. Turns out that's important if you're in the content business, right? Did they actually read this, or did they just sit on the page for 20 minutes while they looked at some other tab and watched YouTube? It's a really simple thing, and you can then say, well, 50% of the people making it halfway through, and only 20% of the people made it all the way through. Maybe my post was a little too long. Or did they make it all the way to the bottom of the page? Did they do other activities on that? And even more so, if that's the only thing they read on your site, it's not a bounce anymore. So you can actually get that data on that. And the link's there. Justin Cutroni, who's fantastic at analytics, is the original source for that. Make sure you're segmenting for value. That's the third tip. Everybody has a different value. It's one thing to kind of take a look and say that everybody's the same, but they're not. I hate the word, they used to use this, advanced segments within Google Analytics. It sounds scary. It shouldn't. It's just really pushing in people that match this, do that. Most of them are in there. You can start looking at people who came in off specific posts and tagging those as advanced segments to see what they do. And it allows you instant comparisons between people that are overall on the site and people that are not overall, the people that came in from this specific source. Are they different? And in most cases they are. You'll see their behavior, and this is an example up here. You can see that peak right there where there was an awful lot of activity. That happened 2 days after a post went out from Facebook. That was the shares, the secondary shares. That was the echo effect, if you will, of things that were going on. And things dropped off after that. Sometimes it's not always nice. Sometimes you'll find that social traffic actually converts less because of that passive effect that occurs. But at least it gives you the intelligent way to look at the data. This is a couple examples where the e-commerce conversion rate from referral traffic, anybody that was ever referred, was way worse than the overall mean. It happens. That's okay. Another one of my favorite reports, cohorting. Cohorting is the idea that people that started on day one, what happened to them on day 3, regardless of when day 1 was. So my day 1 might be Tuesday, your day 1 might be Friday. If you get into the cohorting reports, all these people get mashed together and their day 1 starts on the same day. So after they consume that first piece of content from you, or that first visit, what happens to them after that? And these kind of curves are sadly common, where you can take people don't come back. Massive percents of them don't. But the people that do, when you can look at them even by specific dates, and look at the dark red up there where the repeat rate a week later was much, much higher. Well, why? That was a multi-installment post. People actually came back for it. It worked. You got to recognize the assists. That's the third and perhaps the biggest tip of them all. Assists are amazing, but we all have this tendency to do something that I think is the worst analysis of it all. Last click. It's literally crediting only one player on the team for anything that they do. You can imagine how much your football team would want to play for you if you only cared about the guy that scored the touchdown, right? There's 11 other players on the team. They're sort of important. Anything is true for this. Assists matter. But last click is the default that we all look at. That's why PPC guys go, look how awesome we did. That's why remarketing looks amazing. Well, of course it was the last click. That's the whole point of it. What got people to do remarketing in the first place? Got to do it right. This is again real data. These Venn diagrams show where there was overlap that occurred between multiple channels. Social rarely is going to be your last click attribution, but it often introduces people into the channel. It often is an intermediate in the middle of this whole funnel process that people go into. And if you're not looking at the multi-click attribution type of reports, you're going to miss it. So don't think, again, that one single click, back to that beginning, that tortuous path that people take, it's not going to happen. There's an attribution modeling. Last interaction, last click is the default. You can mess with it and make other things. Linear, everybody on the team, anybody that touched the puck, they get an assist or a goal, doesn't matter. So if there's 3 touches that happened, everybody gets a third, right? That's great, it's a very simple model, it's very, very easy to understand. And you'll see rather large shifts in the data as things occur. And it compares the two. So you can see where last click will undervalue things and other things will overvalue it. It's very, very important to kind of look at this. 20% shifts, 30% shift, 200% shifts are not uncommon when you look at even simple models. Don't forget about call tracking. That's another goal that you can have. In terms of pushing things back, you want to make sure that you're getting across the idea of there are other actions that happen outside. This can also push back into your central data source, and in a lot of cases, you can also track that as a multi-touch sort of action. That's my son there in the front. Had to show him up there. And advancing methods, because he's still growing, obviously. But here's a few more things that whoa, that was fast. You might say this is kind of hard to do, right? How do we go about doing things like this? Well, this is the way big brands figure out the ROI on things like TV ads. They'll actually run 75 GRPs in this metro area and 125 GRPs, gross rating points, in another area. And they'll see the difference in the lift that occurs based upon actual sales data for whatever Frito-Lay chips they happen to be promoting in that. And based upon that, by looking at across all these cells, all the cells with 75 sold this, all the cells with 125 sold that, and they can see, oh, we got a 6% lift out of that. 6% lift times gazillions of chips, turns out that's a lot of money. That's how they measure and figure out what their media plans need to be. That's an amazingly hard way to do it. It can be done for Facebook as well. If you look at people's demographics and look at your own demographics and see how they correlate with one another, you can do a really basic version of the same thing. How do my users look different than how do my overall buyers look different than my Facebook fans? And let me see what that correlation is. Let me split out a geo, push it really hard on this side of the metro, less so on that side of the metro, and see what happens, and get some of these basic analysis. It's A/B testing on ad level or post level or other things that you're doing that allows you some level of this. And you might also say there are times where I don't run things to a website, I don't sell things through a website. Cars are almost the world famous version of this. There are other ways to correlate some of this stuff back into the metro. I'm going to share with you really quickly a case that I'm personally involved with, which is the Subaru Ambassador Program. I love my Subaru. I have had 4 of them over my life, and I will probably have 5 or 6 by the time I'm done buying cars. I love it. It's a fantastic car. They invited me into this program, which is the Subaru Ambassador Program, when they found out I had 4 of them. Go figure. It's a free program, meaning they don't pay me for it, but they do give me cool stuff. I actually got this in the mail the other day, which is a little box of Subaru Legacy die-cast cars, specially made for them that I could hand out to people. Well, I gave them to my kid. He brought them to school, handed them out to some of his friends, and they got to experience, something that's really unique because of that. Obviously, I talk about this in things that happen. I tweeted about this, and it actually got some decent amounts of engagement. I have to imagine it's a very effective program for them, but it's not like I go, hey, I'm Steve Hammer, please make sure when you go buy your Subaru, tell them that I sent you. It doesn't work that way. There's no linkage at all. And it's a very spread out program. So how do they measure that it's effective? Well, they're creative. We have monthly check-ins. For them to keep sending me the free stuff, I tell them what I did with it. That's the quid pro quo. It's a really simple one, really, when you get right down to it. How many Facebook shares did you make of it? How many Twitter posts did you do? Who did you talk to in person? What other things did you do? What events did you go to? It's really simple. It takes me like 5-10 minutes to do one of these posts, but it allows them the data at a richer level that probably can be correlated back to more traditional metrics. How many impressions happened out of this? In almost an old media way for a new media program. It's fantastic, it's amazing. And like I said, I'm a huge advocate of it. And I know everything they're doing with it, right? I don't know how effective it is, but I'll bet they do. And I can say this about the program, the stuff they started giving me gets better all the time. So I have to believe it's working, and you can justify it based upon this. You can be creative with your measurement, and I advise you to do so. So I want to thank you guys for your time. We have some time for questions. Like I said, Steve Hammer, please feel free to contact me on Twitter at Armond Hammer, A-R-M-O-N-D. I'm a little obsessed with hammers. So.
All right, well, while any question askers are flagging down the microphones, before you spoke, you and I were chatting, and we started talking about call tracking and about your experiences with that and how that might kind of go along with some of these other themes. Can you elaborate a little bit on that for everyone?
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of it. The way it works is it'll actually swap out a dynamic number based upon the sources. So typically what we'll do is we'll use that in a, put a specific number in a post, make a fresh one or something else along that so we can track it back to the original source of where things came in from. It's fairly inexpensive at any reasonable scale, and there's tons of providers out there that are out there. Highly recommend it.
Any providers?
I'm a big fan of call tracking metrics, despite their terribly obvious name. They actually do a really good job and have some good stuff. Not an official endorsement, not an affiliate link or anything else like that. They're just who we use.
All right. Any questions out there? Giving it a quick scan in the dark. All right, well, you can find Steve anytime, including in this very next break. We're going to take about 20 minutes or so, have a few exciting things right when we come back, and then there are going to be 3 speakers rapid fire in a row. So now would be the time, as if you need my permission, to use the restroom, to grab any drinks you want. We'll see you in a few minutes.